Had even more to drink, so my clarity of mind has diminished even further. This is the same day as the Body of Lies video. My theory, integral Mandelic or Mandelic integral, postulates the notion essentially that the first tier in spiral dynamics, the 6 stages that designate essentially all of human consciousness from about 100,000 years ago to the present, is what I consider to be the power tier, because I am postulating that prior to that there was 2 other tiers. There was essentially the instinctual tier that led up to about reptiles, and then there was an emotive tier that brought us to from reptiles to the end of the high mammals. The power tier, therefore, is suggestive, and it's not something that we see in integral theory. The notion, namely, that behind many of the motivations of the people, in that tier, there's a background element of power. The master-slave mentality is sort of running in the background to some extent. And then when we flip over to the second tier, although we transcend and include that, there is an element still running of sort of the need to have some power in life, power with, and even potentially to some degree over others, but it's diminished radically. So we can see in many of the organizational structures this focus, this background focus of power. And it makes sense, I believe, that the issues of power will come to light near the end of this transition into the second tier, or the fourth tier in my opinion, because the dominating principles that run that tier are dying, are ending. And so, even though we're at sort of, especially in the West here, roughly the green stage of consciousness, there is this still sort of, I would say, primary focus of power that couples with the green structure. Now, I think that there's healthy and unhealthy versions of it, and I do believe that we've went to an extreme that it's overly focused on. And so you have both the reality that it is the power tier, and then the pathological over-focus on it. And so that double charge makes it extraordinarily dangerous in that sense. So with the transition to the next tier, we're looking at something that both understands to some major extent the reality of that, although because our whole culture is embedded in this system, it's hard to see the body of lies, it's hard to see it, so we can even be at that higher order of cognition and not see, especially the techno-industrial realities here that organize, that structure these motivations. And that is why I believe to some major extent, it is reasonable to call the mean green mean the mean green mean. Although, when I say that, there are far more healthy versions of green, wherein there is indeed a genuine sense of care and empathy for others. And I think the subversion of that is the subversion of the we space that's always present, or ought to be always present, in any developmental stage above mammals. But we can repress the Thanatos capacity, the Thanatos of repression, is a possibility at any stage, and I noted that it's somewhat pathological at this point. So there is an imbalance in some ways. There's both the I and the it that makes two focal points autonomous and only one agape, communicative, that is consciously recognized, and the suppression, repression of the one that's actually the communicative part of us is super dangerous, because then we don't have any connectivity between others.